transmission essentially means, our binary 0, 1. You might say that Y is relevant. You can say that I represent my 0 as 0, or my 1 as, you can say, positive voltage, or I represent my 1 as positive and 0 as negative. What basically differentiates the two, you can say, schemes. So here the very elementarily, at least you can understand it, like, if you're transmitting 0, let us say we have some 10 zeros or maybe 20 zeros continuously. If you transmit like zeros, what happens? The receiver loses the synchronization because the no signal is coming up. You need to understand, I think in the lab also I was talking yesterday, like some student was telling it's a synchronous demodulation. So what is meaning of synchronous demodulation? Synchronous demodulation means essentially the same clock frequency that you are using at the transmission, you use at the receiver also to demodulate it. And synchronous demodulation you have studied in analog and other systems also. So you can understand, because the synchronization is lost because no voltage is coming, and the, you can say, receiver goes idle, and that's obviously you can say problematic case. So what we want essentially, we want a kind of transmission where the synchronous you can say link is also maintained, along with other, you can say, features also of the transmission are also, you can say, correspondingly maintained. Now once we define, you can say, line code, the question may be, as I said, this particular presentation, if we have the source, we have the multiplexer, and we have the line coder. All of you know that what is meaning of multiplexer means, I'm combining, you can say, a lot of signals. Maybe it's a voice, it's a data, or multiplexer. I think every student understands what is the role of a multiplexer. So the multiplexer output, the moment it comes, you can say, in some form, we implement our line coder. Now this is not only valid in, you can say, in digital transmission, it's in optical line, communication also. You will have a line coder. How do you represent your 0, 1? The kind of binary pulses that you are feeding for 0, 1, that essentially defines the line coder. So output of multiplexer is coded into electrical pulses or waveforms for the purpose of transmission over the channel. So they are, you can say, coded into waveforms. The same thing analogically, if you think in digital modulation also, we translate our binary to some, you can say, some corresponding continuous varying waveforms. So that's the basic meaning of line coding. I hope you understand now. Many possible ways. The simplest one is on off. Like line code, you might say the simplest one be on off. On means high voltage 1, off means 0 voltage. Now all digital transmission systems are designed around some particular form of pulse response. Okay, some particular form of pulse response. How? Let me in fact introduce you with this particular, more, you can say, like rigorous form of this particular formulation. Like now this particular circuit you look at. Okay, so we have the message signal empty, and we have the source encoder. Okay, source encoder, you already know what it is. Then we have the baseband modulation line coding. Okay, so this is, the moment source encoder will produce some binary 1 0 1 1 0 1 0. So what a line coder does, you can say, for the positive one, this is positive voltage. For 0, it is negative voltage. For another 2 ones, it is a positive voltage. Okay, for 0, another negative voltage. For another one, it is a positive voltage. Student, is it clear? If you look at the output of your, yes, you are feeding some, you can say, any binary signal 1 0 1 1 0 1 0. So what is the output of a, you can say, line coding, line coder, you can call it, the output. So at the output of a line coder, you will have a formulation where you will have, you can say, corresponding 1 as a positive pulse, 0 and negative pulse. Now this may be 1, you can say it may be, you can say, 0 also corresponding to 0 voltage. But you understand where the line coder comes into picture in digital transmission. And then after this particular line coding, we go for digital carrier modulation, and we feed it to multiplexer. Some other signal may be recombined together, feed to channel, and then the regenerative repeaters. I think this is, we have already talked a little bit about it, but I mean, to give you an idea about where the line code is, you can say implement it and in what vertical formulation it is, you know. Now, this is another, transmission where we can define, like I just said, like if you take, I mean, I take any elementary binary formulation or my, you can say, message signal 1 1 1 0 0 1 0 1 1 0 0 0. I mean, any random formulation you can take on. So the first formulation, if you look in the figure A, this is 1 corresponding to high voltage, 0 0 voltage. That means I don't transmit any voltage. Similarly for 1 here, and similarly for, yes, students? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is it clear? I think you should give me some, feedback about, if you have any question, please feel free to ask any question also. So the first formulation can be, you can say my any random 1 1 1 0 1. So I can represent my binary in this form. Okay. And look here, there is a separation also between the two bits here. So you might say that, I mean, the total time duration is not being occupied by the, you can say, the bit. That means my bit is little bit, you can say, coming to 0 level before the time, you can say, of the pulse. Now, this is what is called, the name of this particular line code is called on off RZ. Okay, on off. Okay, on off means, you can say, corresponding to 1, I say on, corresponding to 0, I call it off. RZ means essentially, RZ stands for return to 0. Okay, return to 0, or similarly you can have NRZ where non return to 0. Okay, students. So what is meaning of RZ is, my pulse, if the pulse duration, you can say, is, let's say, 5 millisecond. So rather than, the pulse occupying the whole of the, you can say, the time duration, the pulse comes, let's say, after 3 millisecond, comes back to the, I mean, you can say, 0 level. That means 2 milliseconds I'm leaving, you can say, open, and that's what the gap this represents here. So RZ is return to 0. That means the pulse returns to 0 state before the time allocated for it. Now you might say that why we do that, we will study that also. And why, if suppose, I mean, the pulse occupies, like this is a pulse. If you look at here, the whole of the pulse is occupying the, consider the duration. There is no return to 0. Okay, if it's a, you can say, 2 ones, or I mean 3 ones, this is particular, all of them are occupying the same, you can say, level for constant. Understand? There is no, you can say, return to 0. Here it is NRZ, no return to 0. That means the pulse is not returning to 0 state. So that's a, I mean, you can say, another state. I mean, what is the, you can say, motivation behind using RZ and NRZ is, as I said earlier on, like if you have a channel which can afford a, you can say, higher bandwidth, or that means the bandwidth of the channel is really high, you can afford to have a RZ, because the bandwidth requirement of, you can say, the signal will be inversely proportional to the time duration of the pulse. So the narrower the pulse becomes, more is the bandwidth requirement. Broader is the pulse, less is the bandwidth requirement. And that's why you can say low speed or high speed. In high speed, we transmit more bits per second, you can call. More bits per second means what? Obviously, the pulses will get narrower and narrower when the speed is increasing. So if you have a gigabits, you will have pulse duration of almost a nanosecond. So nanosecond means 1 upon time duration, 1 upon 1 nanosecond. How much it will be? You can say corresponding to 1 nanosecond, or maybe 0.1 nanosecond. So you can calculate, it will be around 10 to the power 10 hertz. So 10 to the power 10 hertz means what? 10 gigahertz. So 10 gigahertz of the bandwidth you require, for transmitting, let's say, pulse of 0.1 nanosecond order. So this RZ and NRZ utilities based on, you can say, different kind of, you can say, applications that we are operating on. So this is my on-off signaling. The first line code is on-off signaling. A, figure A. The next B, that is stand for polar RZ. What is meaning of polar RZ here is, Polar means positive as well as negative. So for 1, I'm transmitting positive, and for 0, I'm transmitting negative. So this is a polar form of, and this is most power efficient, you can say, technique also. Many times I think digital logics also, you must have studied plus minus 5 volt, like in, you can say, TTL. I mean, you can define upon, you can say, for to have a better noise margins. You understand? I think in binary or digital electronics, you read about noise margins of a digital logic family. So essentially, more is the variation. Obviously, the noise margins negotiations can, or noise margins at least will be higher. So many more, you can say, the kind of, you can say, parameters which are interlinked together. So in case of polar, we transmit positive for 1, and we transmit negative, same, you can say, if it's a +5, this is -5 for 0. And so this is my polar RZ. Again, RZ because it's a return to 0. The pulse is returning to 0 before the time allocated to for it. I think this must be clear. Okay, so my, this is another scheme of my, you can say, line coding. One was on-off signaling, another is polar. Now after that comes the bipolar. Okay, bipolar RZ. What is meaning of bipolar? And in fact, some people name it as AMI also, alternate mark inversion. Some books make, notation is, you can say, bipolar. Some books make use of it as AMI, that is alternate mark inversion. The most widely used line code, you can say, as far as our digital transmission or PCM is concerned. In PCM, we mostly make use of this AMI, that's alternate mark inversion, or you can call it bipolar also. So what happens in bipolar? In bipolar, if you look at, what I'm doing is, I'm transmitting, you can say, corresponding to high for my 1, and my next one, if it will be opposite to my first one. Okay, and my next one will be opposite to that. Understand? Now you might say that, of course, that's a at least basic mechanism I am explaining. And for 0, I don't transmit any voltage. So what basically motivation is for positive one, you can say, the first one I transmit positive, for the next one I transmit negative, and for the next one I transmit as positive, for the next one I transmit negative, next one positive, next one negative. You might say that why this we are doing it, sir, or what is the basic? In fact, before we started, obviously there must be a question in your mind also, like how do you compare this particular line codes? What is the property of a line code which is important? Okay, in your opinion, what should be the basic mechanism for, you can say, or basic criteria for selecting, let's say, line code? I think that's a valid question. What should be the criteria? I mean, criteria means desirable, let us say, characteristic of a line code. What should be the desirable characteristic of the line code? So first of all, I think you can say is, my line code should require, obviously, as less bandwidth as possible. So the first criteria, you can say, desirable characteristic is transmission bandwidth. So transmission bandwidth should be as perhaps low required. That should be, to transmit my 1 bit securely at the destination. So first criteria is transmission bandwidth. So of course, I mean, all parameters are interlinked together. So like in different kind of conditions, you trade off also. But transmission bandwidth is a very, very important criteria, because bandwidths are limited. I think you understand that. And they are pretty expensive also. If you lay down another cable for another, it takes a lot of money for the service provider. So it's a transmission bandwidth, that's the first one. Then comes the power efficiency. Okay, power efficiency means what? The line coding should be power efficient. Power efficient means essentially I should be able to transmit my pulse at a low voltage, and it should reach securely. I should pick up a line code which is power efficient. Like polar is very, as far as power efficiency, we can make the calculations also for how to calculate power efficiency for individual line code also. That's very obvious, I think, power efficiency. In a way, you can understand it like in your mobiles, you can see the battery power is obviously now getting better, but the voltage that you are transmitting, the power that you are transmitting, we want to optimize that. And that means if you look at a power level or the voltage level of the chip that is being used in the mobile phone, this may operate around, you can say, maybe 1.5 volt. So that sort of power is transmitted, or power based upon this kind of, why, you might say, why this is because I want to extend the, you can say, my battery power for longer duration. So if I am consuming more power, obviously the battery will, you can say, last for a shorter duration. If I can have a technology which enables me to operate at a low, you can say, power, then obviously that will be advantageous. And that's what happening in modern day, you can say, these handsets also. The power is getting, you can say, power management is becoming better. So that's the next criteria, power efficiency. Then you might say that the line code can be helpful in providing me some, you can say, information about my transmitted signal also, like the signal that I transmitted has reached properly, or there is some error has crept into that. If that line code can me alert me there somewhere, it will be very advantageous. Okay, because so, like, can line code help me in identifying some errors also? Yes, you can see here itself in this AMI itself. If suppose the basic mechanism is, for one I transmit positive, for the next one I transmit negative, and then for another one we are transmit negative. Suppose my this negative, you can say, voltage is detected at the receiver end as positive. The receiver knows that no two, ones can be positive adjacent to each other. That means there is some error somewhere, isn't it? So it's a very easy, you can say, to identify also, like no two ones can have the same polarity as far as AMI is concerned. And the moment it comes, you can say, the both the ones are identified. That means some noise signal or some other, error has, you can say, entered into this particular transmission signal. So that property helps me in identifying error and correcting it also. As I said earlier on also, that accuracy is a very important parameter of digital transmission. And I emphasized it earlier also, like in PCM, out of, you can say, almost, 10,000 or a million bits, million, है ना, 10 लाख आप बिट भेजें, तो कोई उनमें एक बिट दो बिट गलत हो सकते हैं. इतना एक्यूरेसी उसमें अवेलेबल है. So much of accuracy is available there. And so it can be, you can say, order of 10 to the power minus 5 to 10 to the power minus 6 as far as your voice transmission is concerned. In data transmission, we require even better. You can understand it, because suppose you are transmitting, let's say, 10,000 rupees or maybe 1 lakh rupees, and if your 1 becomes 0 in binary, what will happen? Your transmitted amount may be 000. It can be really very problematic for anyone. That means, obviously, because we are having all digital systems now, so accuracy is of most prime, you can say, importance. And how do you ensure accuracy? This error control, identification, and their detection and correction is, you can say, part of the system. So this kind of line codes, you can say, if I can have a line code which gives me, some information about error or detection or capability also, that error control code will be, obviously, you can say, very, very, helpful. So that's the third, you can say, property which a line code should have. The fourth one can be what? Any student? Can you name other property if you have learned so far? This is called favorable power spectral density. Power spectral density, every student understands, PSD. पावर स्पेक्ट्रल डेंसिटी, आप लोगों ने यदि रैंडम सिग्नल में कुछ पढ़ा है कोई, तो देयर इट मस्ट बी लाइक एनर्जी स्पेक्ट्रल डेंसिटी, we have power spectral density. So the power spectral density property, What is meaning of power spectral density? Power spectral density essentially means distribution of the power across the frequency spectrum. Distribution of the power. Like in the lab, you are doing some experiment on like a square wave or rectangular wave synthesis. So which particular frequency has the highest power? Maybe your fundamental harmonic, original, signal, you can say frequency. If you look at your the corresponding harmonics, like first harmonic, second harmonic, third harmonics, those harmonics will have lesser, you can say. Yes? Any question? Students? Any student wants to ask any question? So in case of, you can say, the harmonics, I mean, the harmonics will continue to have lower. That's what you must have studied in Fourier series, or your, you can say, Fourier spectrum also. Is what is Fourier transform does. It you can say, translate a particular signal from time domain to frequency domain. And so if you, what a power spectral density does, it gives me information about distribution of the power across a frequency spectrum. So which particular frequency has more power? Okay. Yes. Why this noise? Students, who's mute your, at least your phone. If someone is not has muted it, or a lot of, you can see, interference is coming from around him or around her, I mean house, or you can say surroundings. Okay, so this is another favorable. So power spectral density is distribution of power across the frequency. Now you might say, how do I calculate, and what it will be depend upon? What is the meaning of favorable? So favorable means, suppose I transmit, let us say, this on-off signaling, okay, across a electrical transmission line. So what will happen? You know about it in your rectifiers study. You have already studied about what is the average DC or AC, you can say, value of a, let us say, half-wave rectified signal. This is as good as a half-wave rectified signal. Maybe not sinusoidal, but you have some finite voltage here. So one thing is certain, you can say for certainty is, I mean, your DC current will be at least finite, or DC voltage will be finite. Is it clear? I mean, you will have some, you can say, current constantly flowing across the transmission line, or you will have a constant drop across the transmission line. Any electrical line, any electrical wire, if it has a constant power, you can say, across it, what will happen? Because transmission lines will have some resistance or some other, you can say, so there will be constant heating, I square R. I think that's every student understands that. If I square R means, I mean, my, you can say, cable starts getting heated up. If it is, the power is flowing across all 24 hours, 365 days, how long this channel can survive? Obviously, I'll have some problem. Or the channel may get, or this particular transmission line may get burst up. Or maybe you can say, if there will be some fire, you can say, if it's heated to beyond certain temperature. That's not a very good scheme in a way, you can say that. So favorable means I want essentially no voltage drop across a transmission line, if it is possible. Essentially, that you can say that. And that's what the same thing you can say here, like in AMI. You might, we were, just trying to understand that why, this opposite polarities are getting, that is just to make power balancing. Power balancing means what? Suppose 50% are 1, 50% are 0. 0 in any case, I am not transmitting anything. You can say I have 49%, 51%, 1 or, I mean, ones. I can work out that, I mean, my positive as a number as well as my negative numbers are same. That means essentially my power line will have hardly any drop, any average value. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good. So I want a favorable, a power spectral density. That means my power drop across, or my DC drop at least. Of course, AC, there will be always some power, but my constant power DC should be reduced to 0. So I do not want any voltage drop as far as my DC voltage is concerned or DC current is concerned. And that is one of the reasons that we talk about this favorable power spectral density. We will do some mathematical analysis also to prove that different kind of line codes have different kind of power spectral densities. We will do that. And then that's the fourth criteria, you can say desirable criteria. What other criteria can be? The other criteria can be timing content, adequate timing content. You must have studied also, and I think I am like in all synchronous demodulation, how do you recover the clock signal? Like whether it's a AM or it's a any other system. If you want to recover your, basic carrier signal, how do you recover the carrier signal? Either you transmit along with your signal a different carrier. I think this every student understands that. I mean, how either we have to recover the carrier from our transmitted signal, or obviously I need to transmit my carrier along with my signal. Normally you must have seen we don't transmit any carrier separate, because that will require obviously power, or you can say my bandwidth. A lot of things will be there. That is undesirable. So what is done is normally this is recovered from the transmitted signal. And there are many schemes. We will also talk when you talk about digital modulations. You must be already doing in the lab, like for a BPSK, how do you demodulate the signal? So you need to have a carrier signal there, or you need to have a timing content. Now suppose somebody says, it must have come to your mind also that this signal, when I transmit and it reaches to a, let's say, repeater or regenerator. Now this signal is obviously going to be much attenuated and reduced along with some noise also. How the regenerator, you can say, generates the same signal again? What techniques, let's say, it makes use of? By how it is possible? Unless until, because if the regenerator cannot recover the exact clock, how it will make a decision that at my this particular clock signal I have transmitted 1, or this particular timing in content, timing in instant, I have transmitted 0, because that has to be very accurate. And it's a very at least fascinating for a, you can say, engineer, that you can make such an accurate regeneration at gigahertz or megabits per second or gigabits per second. It's really if you look at those kind of circuitry, it will be very at least informative, that the timing content, the clock signal, I recover the clock signal from my transmitted signal here, like the transmitted binary signal. How do I recover the clock from a binary signal? In FM, what do you do in FM? I hope you have some concepts of, at least you remember that when your FM's modulated signal is received by the receiver, because there may be some amplitude also added up to that. So what you do, you normally chop it off and you regenerate the signal. I don't know whether you have studied it or not. No. If you have studied from any other Higgins or top selling book, you must have come across it, that the signal is chopped and then again regenerated. How do it get regenerated? Because every, like we just talked about square wave synthesis. So every pulse will have some, you can say, fundamental frequency component. So what I do is I put a filter around that. So that filter, what it will do, it will regenerate the same, you can say, amount of clock signal for me. Same frequency signal. When I pass the signal through that, only the fundamental frequency component will be picked up and it can be amplified further on. So based upon this kind of, and this is a big problem. I think timing synchronization is a big problem. It is becoming rather more problematic now. More the speed, more the problem. Like there are many times you must have heard about network failure, whether it's a satellite signals or you can say whether it is, you can say, internet signals. How is the synchronous, you can say, this particular synchronous behavior is getting maintained? Because the speed now getting higher and higher every day. If you look at optical fiber, speeds, we in our campus have more than 2 Gbps, the kind of connectivity. So likewise, many campus, many government establishment. So who is maintaining that speed? And obviously there must be some, you can say, corresponding server who is trying to control this particular, like you have a gateways or your, you can say, other mechanism infrastructure. So it's very little bit fascinating to understand that how this particular network at such a high speed is maintained. Let's say hundreds of Gbps. An optical fiber link, you can maintain, hundreds of Gbps even signal. In case of wired, in case of wireless also, this is much more big problem. Clock recovery, I think you will study more about even in all kind of transmissions, high speed transmission. This clock in content, clock recovery is a big, you can say, problem even today also. So you can have a some assignment on, those of you who want to at least know more about it, that how is, let's say, in clock and mobile communication synchronization is done. How is synchronization done in, let us say, whatever information we are transmitting, let us say, from far off places. How the transmission is possible. If you talk about communication link, communication now going toward Mars or anywhere now, you can say we are getting signal from all far off places also. How is those signal received? The pictures that are getting transmitted from, let us say, our this particular props or this particular mission that we are transmitting, how those pictures are received at the receiver, at the earth stations. It may be again a very, very interesting, at least reading, those. So now you understand timing content means as I said in the very beginning, if you are not transmitting, let's say, a signal for, let's say, 50 bits, 50 bits are 0 bits, what will happen? The receiver obviously loses the track. It is as simple as that. You can say, if you are made to, stand without doing anything, if you're doing something, you remain attentive. If you are being, asked to just, stand idle, obviously you lose a little bit of, you can say, corresponding to that synchronous, the kind of activity that you must be doing. So if you are sitting idle, so the same works out for the receiver also. If the receiver is not getting bits, obviously it goes to sleep also. And sleep means essentially you lose the synchronous, you can say, corresponding connectivity. Okay, so you appreciate now a little bit. Adequate timing content is the favorable characteristic of any line code, if it can help me that. Then comes the transparency. Okay, so if every data that you code, or for every possible sequence of data or coded signal, now this is, if it is received faithfully at the receiver, you can call that code to be transparent code, isn't it? So that's a basic, you can see the formulation that I have talked about the desirable characteristic of the line codes. I have talked about the sum of, I have plotted, or we have learned about how to plot or how to represent different kind of line codes. So in fact, in those of you who have interest in computer also, there is a line code, what is called Manchester encoding. I have not plotted it here, Manchester encoding, but you understand Manchester encoding, that's again a line code. What does a Manchester line code does? Like in our computer networks, we use this Manchester line coding, where there will be a transition at every bit, middle of the bit. So for positive bit, let's say if it's a 1, I can suggest a transition at the middle of the bit, means let's say from low to high. And for 0, I can decide about from high to low. Understand? So in a Manchester line code, or there are split phase, many names are given to that particular line code. I have, you can say, corresponding transition. That means a pulse will be always transmitted, whether it's 1 or 0. So for one, I can have a, you can say, a mechanism where I say that my 1 is getting transmitted if my pulse or the transition is from low to high. If it's high to low, I can say it's a 0. So how this is helpful? This is far more, you can say, helpful and accurate in a sense, because identifying or your recording transitions are far easier. Okay, recording these transitions are far easier because the moment the signal reaches to the receiver end, the signal gets attenuated. It's no longer, you can say, it's a 5 volt or 8 volt that you are transmitting. It may be, let's say, 2 volt or maybe less than 1 volt or something along with the noise. But transition identification is easier because there will be always some jump, you can say, maybe very minuscule. So that way, that Manchester line encoding is, and many of you are studying about differential. So like we have differential Manchester encoding also. We are reading about differential, DPSK. So the same thing, you have studied about differential PCM also. Can any student tell me what is the difference between PCM and differential PCM? DPCM and PCM.
Sir, in case of PCM, each pulse is given a code, and in DPCM, the difference of sampling at two instances is coded.
Not sampling, you can say, the kind of encoding. What you are encoding is the difference.
The difference, yes, sir.
In case of DPCM, and in case of PCM, obviously the sample I am encoding.
Yes,
So
sir.
sample encoding can take, you can say, 3 bits or maybe 4 bits. While the differential, obviously the labels are very, very, you can say, approximately closer. So I don't require much of, maybe 1 or 2 bit will be sufficient to encode that bit, the difference.
Yes, sir.
So that way it reduces the, you can say, generation of more information. That means less information can be generated in case of DPCM than in case of PCM. Of course, there are certain, you can say, other limitations, but if you talk about the same way, you can talk about this differential encoding also, where it becomes, you can say, effective when there is a transition, when there is a change. So change can be recorded, like what you do in DPSK. You are essentially recording the change. When there is a 1, you can say. When a 0, there is no change. So the same thing, I mean, in case of differential also. So these are some of the, schemes, line codes. So you understand now line code. There are different kind of line codes. What are the desirable characteristic I talked about? So like RZ, polar, this is, you can say, AMI or your bipolar, and this is my this is NRZ. This full fill up, you can say, this duration. This is NRZ, non-return to 0, and this is again non-return to 0. This is a polar non-return. Like all 3, you can say high. All zeros full with, you can say, negative voltage. So this is my polar NRZ. So you can now understand, or you can appreciate it. In fact, as I said earlier on, like in case of, you can say, optical fiber, we use RZ because optical fiber has no problem as far as bandwidth is concerned. But for electrical cables, we normally obviously have to take care of mostly NRZ or some other carriers we will have to make use of. Okay. Now, this on-off signal I can represent as sum of a random polar signal and a clock frequency periodic signal. These are the representations I think we can study about. Now, the next part that comes out to be, I want to study about, you can say, this particular, or you can make out, at least to show you, I mean, this pulse transmission, a little bit more, you can say, clear picture to most of you. So if I transmit, let us say, 0 1 1 0 1 0 1 here, I want here also 0 1 0 at the destination. That's my communication channel across. So what most channels are, they're low pass and idealized. So if you're transmitting a signal like that, the signal will be obviously getting, you can say, expanded because of the, you can say, bandwidth. Similarly, maximum pulse transmission, if you transmit across these particular rectangular edges, obviously high frequency component cannot be supported on a low bandwidth channel. So they become, you can say, corresponding to these, your edges becomes very, very, you can say, rounded off. Now that we have already talked about desirable property. This is about energy and power signals. I want to little bit, make you aware about an energy signal xt has for average energy. That means there is a finite energy. Okay. If it's a finite energy, this becomes my energy signal. Now, for a power signal, this is a finite power. Okay. For average power. So I can define my energy. What is average energy? Average energy means the total energy I calculate and integrate across minus infinity plus infinity. I think that's simple one. So all finite signals, you can say, or mostly energy signals. All periodic signals normally will be have power signals. Okay. So I can calculate this average power as 1 upon 2t from minus 2 to t xt square dt. So the average power where t tends to infinity. Can think of average power as average energy per time. An energy signal has zero average power. Okay. Energy signal has zero average power. A power signal has infinite average energy. Try to pay attention to that. A power signal can have or has infinite average energy. Power signals are generally not integrable, so do not necessarily have a Fourier transform. If you look at your sinusoidal or this thing, you have the peaks and delta peaks. If you calculate Fourier transform of a, let's say, sinusoidal signal, you can see it. You will have some peaks at particular your delta functions that come. We will study more about it. We use power spectral density to characterize power signals that do not have a Fourier transform. Okay, we use power spectral density to characterize power signals that do not have a Fourier transform. So we'll see that we do not have Fourier transform. If you can say we have problem in this kind of binary you can say transmission also. So what we go is we normally go about some other alternative route to calculate the corresponding power spectral density. Normal power spectral density, you can say, sir, calculate it in the get into the frequency domain, and you can calculate that what energy is there at what frequency. Now, what is it? Time invariant systems, linear time invariant systems. You understand? Meaning of linear time invariant systems is what? Signals का तो कोर्स किया है ना आप लोगों ने सबने. Linear time invariant system means I transmit the signal right now, or maybe half an hour or 2 hours. The system remains invariant to the this particular signal. Okay, so this is time invariant system. System impulse response, I can calculate ht. That is based upon my input signal as a delta function. Filtering as a convolution in time, I can calculate this particular filtering concept as convolution in time. Frequency response, I can define in terms of hf as some transfer function along with some phase relation. Like this is my xt. I discussed earlier on also what is meaning of, let's say, if I want to transmit, I want to know about the impulse response of an amplifier. What we do, and why do we calculate impulse response? First of all, we calculate impulse response because once we know the impulse response, I can predict the system behavior for any other input. Okay, so that helps me into simulating. If I have calculated the impulse response of my channel, then I can predict the behavior of the channel along for any other input if I know the impulse response of my channel. Understand? So impulse response essentially enables me to predict the behavior of the, you can say, my signal across the channel. If it's a channel impulse response, of course it's an amplifier, it is obviously the corresponding to that. So this is now this is distortions, distortionless transmission. The output equals input except for amplitude scaling and or delays. Okay, so there is only attenuation, you can say, which hardly happens. And obviously there will be always some other issues, you can say. Simple equalizers invert channel distortions. So if you have equalizers, what it does, whatever delays the channel introduces, they try to neutralize that, and that means the signal can be restored to its original position. Now this is, I think everyone student understands low pass filter, ideal filters. That means from some frequency, from 0 to b also you can take minus b2 plus b also. Band pass filter means what? You will have a band. Band means essentially from this frequency, let's say if you're negative frequency, you are taking minus b1 to minus b2, and B1 to B2. Both these frequencies, the signal will be transmitted. Rest at the other places, the signal cannot, will not pass through the, you can say, corresponding to this particular frequencies. So, and of course, this what we do now about, you can say, corresponding to our power spectral density calculation, that we will start on the next turn. Okay. Any question, students, if you want to ask now?
So please share the previous lecture slides.
Yeah, I'll share. In fact, we continue also with that. Okay. So like this particular line codes, I mean calculations, this is everything is from BP Lathi book. Okay. Even this particular slides are also based on this particular book itself. If you have a BP Lathi book, and the title of the book is Modern Digital and Analog Communication Systems. Okay. This
Okay,
is
sir.
Oxford publication. And that's a good book. I think if you read, you'll have. So I'll totally cover this chapter from that. Okay, so I'll share with you all these slides also once we finish it. Okay, any question, please? Any question? So get hold of this book, as I said in the lab also. Read about the noise signals also, like from Top Ceiling or other book. I think you need to pick some concept based upon these things. Maybe your learning will be at least better if you little bit prepare or background on based on this particular you can say inputs. Okay, so we meet tomorrow.